it started to be real, right?
Yeah.
Having those conversations with people and putting yourself out there, showing intent, and in some way being vulnerable to rejection was difficult for me. It was quite uncomfortable in those initial like conversations, like when someone went ahead and we'd approached and then actually gotten into something and there was a little bit of a spark. That's when it gets a little bit real for me anyway. But yeah, it was helpful at least in the very first session. I've still been in a position where I've set up a bunch of dates now with working with Gus, but these would be literally my first ever dates. So for me, it's really starting from ground zero here.
All right, Oscar, thanks for doing this video with me. So just to introduce everyone, been working for you for 2 weeks, two and a half weeks. So maybe you want to give a bit of intro about yourself, your background, what you're doing for work, and kind of like what brought you here.
When I came to Gus, I still am. I'm basically just working a lot. I'm in a position where I've prioritized my work most of my life and pretty much at the detriment of most of my social skills.
Yeah.
So I was pretty problem aware of really wanting to go ahead and actually work on this specifically. I knew that I needed someone there to keep me accountable. I feel like a lot of people, especially with this, it's something they know that they kind of want to get into if they are aware of this, but they've read about it, read books even, watched YouTube videos, but never taken too many actions. So I think the main thing that I got in the 2 weeks being together is like, we're right there. We're standing right here on the high street, right?
Yeah.
And when Gus says go and approach someone, you go and approach someone.
Yeah.
And so it makes it real. And that quick feedback as well, it's been really helpful.
Yeah, so maybe let's take a step back. Like when you came, when I first saw you, like you're clearly a driven individual. But like I think when you were coming towards me, you were saying that for the most of your life, so you prioritize work, you've been working quite a lot, and social skills kind of suffered. Because I think for the people that are watching, for them it's also important to relate as much as you want to share, obviously. What was your experience with women before we started doing all this?
Yeah, so virtually nothing. I was in a position where I'd slept with one person in my entire life. When I was 18, I lost my virginity. I'm 20 now. This is 2 years ago. And I was completely drunk. I don't really even remember it. And since then, I kind of just put my head down, almost in denial of kind of a social life, really, in avoidance of it. So for me, it's virtually nothing. I've still been in a position where I've set up a bunch of dates now with working with Gus, but these would be literally my first ever dates. So for me, it's really starting from ground zero here. Like I know how to speak to people in like a normal setting and stuff like that. But what Gus really helped with is, I think you really helped with going ahead and actually showing intent. Like when we first started on some of our sessions, that was the hardest thing for me, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like even saying a statement of intent.
Yeah.
Like on our very first session.
Yeah. What was really good is that you were following like directions. I told you like go and approach, and you did. But I think for a lot of guys, because you're from the UK, a lot of guys UK, US, they are kind of like chatty, maybe social, but showing intent and flirting, that's one of the biggest difficulties for a lot of guys. So I think that was quite good. And also what's interesting, like what even brought you to like cold approach, because you were actually aware of this thing, like meeting women in real life. Why didn't you just like, okay, I'm just gonna do a bunch of Tinder dates or like try to do online dating? What brought you specifically to this?
So I had Hinge for a bit in the UK and also a bit of Tinder as well. But I actually didn't even go on a date, right? I matched with people and I just kind of left it there. I feel like it becomes like a dopamine game. It's not even real. And even the women on there as well, it's just, okay, that validation of people matching, it's just an ego boost for them, but also it's just not real life. And I wanted something real, so I guess like a year ago, I maybe like looked at videos, saw this kind of space existed. I mean, that's what kind of made me aware. I've always been in kind of quote unquote like the self-development space, like what I do for a job, it's very ingrained in that space, and so you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
And just being in that space makes you aware. Obviously, there are some people who are approaching people on the street. That's like a very uncomfortable thing, and so I knew there was something there that I had to at least like kind of break into.
Also, what I wanted to know was, before we went to the first session, I remember you telling me, we spoke on the Zoom call, you said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like, I've only seen videos about it. I don't know how it's going to be. Like, how was those first interactions, like when you actually went and did this, when you showed up and started doing this?
So obviously with you there, like keeping you accountable to actually go ahead and approach, like you're kind of forced to, even if it feels a little awkward. But then the main thing as well is it started to be real, right?
Yeah.
Having those conversations with people and putting yourself out there, showing intent, and in some way being vulnerable to rejection was difficult for me. It was quite uncomfortable in those initial like conversations, like when someone went ahead and we'd approached and then actually gotten into something and there was a little bit of a spark. That's when it gets a little bit real for me anyway. But yeah, it was helpful, at least in the very first session. It's a weird thing approaching someone on the street in your head at the very beginning, but I think what helped me with you actually, and this is something I really took away from that first session, definitely, is the technical approach you took here.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, so you can go around and do like a hard stop, and then they're going to stop there and actually have a conversation with you. You can point back, right? There's all this, which I guess if you're somewhat logical in some senses, maybe, for me anyway, it helped me go like, okay, there's a method to the madness kind of thing, right? You can at least have that reliableness of, if I do this in a certain way, then that gets me in the door, and now it's the next step. The key thing was like starting with that. I was doing like sharp approaches, like really like just awkwardly and stuff like that, and so I'd come out from the corner of their eye and it would just be like, don't do that, it's just really not good. So it was the really kind of like wide approach, all of that was quite helpful, the technical parts.
Yeah. One or two more questions. Like, people come here for different things. Their goals might be different. And also, this is not like a business where you measure success by, let's say, revenues or profit. Like, for each one, success is different. So what would you say? I mean, we only were together for a relatively short period of time up to now. You'll leave to Madrid, and we'll keep having calls online. But in these 2 weeks, like, what would you say your biggest wins? Like, both maybe in practical sense, you said like multiple dates, and also maybe like mentally, what would you say are your biggest wins in this period?
For me, the biggest win that I'm coming away with this is a tool set in order for me to know how to work away at this forever. I know now, coming in, if this is like your first ever thing, for me, it was like my first ever time doing anything like this, anything similar to this. And now it's given me not only some of the mindset to go ahead and cope and learn to get better, but also just like, okay, if I want to build this as a skill set and also just get better at this in general, like I'm going to have to go out consistently and practice, right? It's not going to just come overnight, as with anything. The biggest win, almost, is actually just you kind of being able to empower me to go, okay, this is what I actually need to do now if I want to go off and build this up to be like really, really proficient in it. Yeah. You've given me that to be able to be like, this is what this looks like tangibly, technically, and now I can actually, if I want, go away and consistently like hammer away at this and build it up, right? Yeah. I've got now the lens of what this actually looks like. I've got a roadmap in my head from you as well. Even just me going to Madrid is like, this is what you need to do in order to continually get better. And so that's the best thing. That's been the biggest gift that you've given me in these sessions, for sure. Yeah, that's what I genuinely felt like.
In the real world, it's like the practical sense. But I mean, obviously, when guys come here, like what they really want to get is that transformation, like the ability to be free. Also, like the what it brings you in terms of like the mindset and like just internal transformational journey. The actual dates with women, I mean, it's important. It's kind of like the cherry on top. But it's like you come for maybe for the dates or for the girls, but then actually you kind of like almost stay, or like the biggest thing for you is this, right? Like it's how you act in general, like in a world, like your social skills. And I think that's cool, man. All right, and then the last thing, what would you say is maybe for someone watching, they're potentially considering doing this, but they have their doubts. Maybe they don't know if it's going to work for them, or they think maybe doing this is weird, or what would you tell to that person who's maybe thinking of doing this and is not sure?
To be honest, I think you just have to throw yourself in the deep end, because it just depends. Because if you're doing this for a similar reason to me, that you know that the kind of person you are right now is not someone that you want to be long term. There's never going to be like a perfect time where all the stars are going to align. It's going to be like a Hollywood movie, and you're going to walk through, she's going to be in a red dress, there's going to be a spotlight coming down, and it's going to be easy, seamless, unawkward. It just doesn't happen, right? What I would say is just having someone there to keep you accountable is the biggest thing, right? Having someone there with you saying, okay, go approach that person, pointing over that's the person you're approaching there. It gives you the drive to actually do it. If you've ever been in a position where you feel that you walk past someone and you know that you kind of want to do this, but haven't actually been able to build the courage to actually go ahead and do it. This is going to be the perfect thing to lay the foundations. For me anyway, I'm just talking from my own experience, it's the perfect thing to lay the foundations of, okay, let's change that wanting to do this into actually doing it, and then actually get good at it as well. So with all of that, it's just never going to all align. The societally, kind of awkward, even for me. I was like, oh shit, this is a bit weird, like people are looking and stuff like that, but it's really not. And the only way to really kind of experience it is just kind of doing it. And once you do it, you're like, okay, this is actually just kind of normal. I think you keep saying, what's your thing? It's like, this is like the most normal thing to do.
For me, this is much more normal than Tinder or Hinge, because there you're literally matching with the photo of someone, bunch of pixels. Here you're doing in real life. Cool, man. I appreciate the time we spent together, also your words. You're going to keep to Madrid. We'll keep working online, having calls, and I'll be with you doing what we did, but just on a call. It was really nice spending this 2 weeks with you, and the most important thing, as I was telling you 10 minutes ago, is just to keep pushing, and then over months, if you keep putting the consistent work that we've practiced, all the strategy, then you're going to see insane transformation. So thanks a lot, Oscar, and excited to see where the journey takes you.